Hello everyone, we're back here on Gelvin Valley, continuing to harvest in our pasture field. He's almost done with it. You know, look at this strip right here. I just now noticed it. He paused. I wonder what that is all about. It appears every time he's come around in this field, he's paused. There's a gap in the straw. That is really curious. Yeah, who knows? Must be some wonky hired help in our dirty combine here. So when we move on from here, I think I'll head over to field 38 and we'll get that one completed. Haven't ever harvested that one before, so I'm looking forward to that one. You know, my last video I was commenting on my son and the commencement address we went to tonight, where we saw all the graduates and kind of how the evening went and some of the memories it brings back from when I was there, and just made me think, back to high school again. And I don't know about anybody else, so one reason I play this game is, I grew up as a little kid wanting to farm. And kind of like I commented in my last video, the backstory of people, or the forward story with what they're going to face in life, and the opportunities people have, or, some of the detriments. There's things that happen that we can't control, and that, the crap sandwich, if you will, that sometimes life hands to people, and you didn't choose it, but you just got it because that's life. But some of those things are significant opportunities. And I think I've mentioned before, my family owns a Lone Oak Farm, that there was a map made about, and I feel so fortunate I could work on that farm, for a number of years growing up. But the farm is owned by two of my uncles, and I think I've mentioned my father's family was a large family. There was 15 children, 14 that lived. One of them died, when he's a little baby. But 14 kids, and that's a big family, obviously. My father was the oldest kid in the family, so he came along first. He helped on that farm, in his growing up years. But because grandfather wasn't ready to retire, when my father was of age, he encouraged him to go to college to get a degree so he could work at something. And and I've seen this happen in a number of families, and this is just the way life is. This, I don't intend this to sound like sour grapes or anything like that at all. I mean, this is just how life is with opportunities. The opportunity to continue farming Lone Oak didn't go to my father, it went to some of his younger brothers. And that's just the way it is. That was birth order. And by the time they came along, that's when Grandpa was more ready to retire and get out of the business, if you will. So they are the ones who got to take the reins on the farm. And so you talk about opportunities, by just changing a little bit in the birth order, it could be me on that farm. But it's not, and that's fine. That's absolutely fine. I have some wonderful uncles, and they've been so gracious to me. I can come back pretty much at any time. They'll even let me drive a combine for the day. Um, it's it was just a wonderful time I had there as a kid, and I'm just grateful to them for the opportunity I have, and that they're so gracious to me to continue to let me come by. But just one of those things, and I know I've had opportunities that maybe some other people don't, or even my own kids, and they will have opportunities that I never had. And I guess the question is, what do we do with them when they're presented, and do we recognize them for what they are? And if we see something, are we willing to work hard for it so that it turns into something versus never materializing? So I don't know why I'm ruminating over this. I'm just thinking back and of growing up, but my high school years, this takes me back. I graduated, let's see, was this 1992? I think that was the summer. Yeah, spring of 92 would have been when I had my commencement. And so I got into high school, I would make it the fall of 88. I still remember that, the first bus ride coming in, and just there was this big school. I think it's even bigger now, incidentally. My class at the time had, I think it was 500 kids in it. So you do the math, you can see about how big the school was, although the classes seemed to get smaller as we went on, which is kind of sad because it indicates there's a number of kids that drop out or don't make it through the program for whatever reason. So hopefully later, they were able to get a GED or one of those things to get the high school equivalent at least, hope for their sakes. But just so many memories of, what it was like being there, and, looking back, it all happened so fast. But, when you're there at the time and studying for all those tests and doing all that homework, you wonder if it's ever going to end. And of course, as we all know, it does. And then you kind of you reminisce, and you wish you could return to some of those days sometimes, especially if they were good days. And for me they were. Like I say, a large part of that was just being blessed, with a large family. I remember, maybe a little of this is common in all school, the rivalry you have with other local schools, when you're playing in the sports programs. And so, before every football game, I say every, maybe it wasn't every, I can't remember. Maybe it was every home football game. Maybe that's how they did it. We'd have a pep assembly, where some of the teachers would speak to us. The ASB president would say some spiel, and there would be skits and that kind of thing that would take place. And I remember enjoying that, although it was plenty noisy for my tastes. I'm not a real flamboyant type person, and when other people are screaming and hollering around me, it kind of makes me nervous. So I don't tend to participate in that kind of thing, and I didn't much as a kid, only very rarely, because I don't know, it just seemed kind of disconcerting. And plus, everybody listening to this video, you can hear my voice. I don't have much of a voice to speak of, and I didn't then. As a kid, I tended to get hoarse really easily, and so a lot of times I just tried not to do much hooting and hollering because there was a price to be paid for it, and yeah, it just wasn't ultimately all that much fun. But it was kind of fun, being there at those pep assemblies and seeing some of the antics and things, that would take place. You know what? I'm gonna take this guy full of wheat to the other field. That's what we're doing. Turn this guy off of course play, and we'll move him around and get him to follow. So we get him set up. Back in our comment, oops, turned off our beacons. What I tend to remember from the pep assemblies, unfortunately, is some of the, well, I don't know, maybe some of you will think this is amusing. I guess I kind of did at the time too. It was more shocking in some ways. There was all kinds of things that took place, and I remember, they would stack us up in the gym, and the freshmen would sit on one side of the bleachers, the sophomores on their side, and so forth. So we all shared space. So at the time, I remember, the cheerleaders would sometimes come in and do some of their routines or whatever, and some of them were pretty good. I mean, they had to practice a lot to keep from hurting themselves with some of the things they did, and so some of them were pretty good. But then sometimes they would pull the old routine where they'd have these huge football players dress up in in pom-poms and these costumes or whatever that the cheerleaders wore, and that was always kind of funny to see them goofing off and doing whatever they did. But I remember one time there was a group of them, I think they were football players. They put all this on, they did their thing, and then when they were done, they turned towards the freshman class and they took a deep bow. And it's like, okay, so they did all this and everybody was, clapping and everything. Well, unbeknownst to me, what those football players were doing when they bent over was they were mooning the entire senior class, which was right behind them on the bleachers. Apparently, yeah, that's just what they did, and that maybe was that maybe was bad enough. The trouble was that particular day, somebody had invited a bunch of grade school kids in, kind of a big brother, little brother, big sister, little sister thing, and all of them were sitting over in the senior section. So they got to see some things, well, that they weren't entitled to see. So I remember some brouhaha happening over that. And why is it that I remember something like that versus, all the positive things? And I do remember some positive things, but I don't know why that sticks out kind of as a weird memory. And actually, the school where my son went to school, it's probably been, shoot, it's probably been 2 decades now. They have their own antics that took place at pep assemblies, and this one I think made national news when it happened. You can probably Google it and look it up. But there they had, and I don't remember the particulars, but it was some kind of a contest amongst the cheerleaders. Maybe it was the varsity cheerleaders versus junior varsity or freshmen or whatever. And so what they did for this competition is they dragged these huge blocks of dry ice in there, and they said, okay, girls, whoever is able to sit on this ice the longest wins. Well, dry ice, that's like minus, wait a minute, am I going the right way? I am not going the right way. Sorry, car, oh boy. Um, I can't talk and drive. Can you, yeah, yes, just go around, there you go. There we go. Okay, sorry tractor, you're gonna be in trouble when this car comes along. There, can you manage that? He did! Okay, very good. Anyway, they had these large blocks of dry ice for these girls to sit on in there. And dry ice, I think, I'm not even sure what dry ice is exactly. Is it nitrogen or whatever it is? It's frozen solid, and it sublimates, meaning it goes straight from its frozen state into the air. It bypasses liquid. And it's, I think, minus 78, 77 degrees centigrade. So it is cold. You just don't mess around with that. I think they treated these blocks of dry ice as if they were regular ice. That might not have caused any problem if they'd used regular ice, and yeah, it would freeze like crazy even with regular ice, but that really was pretty stupid. I mean, dry ice. Well, so these girls, they did the best they could before they got up, but I think every single one of them had burns that they had to have surgically treated at the hospital after this escapade. And like I say, it made national news, and yeah, it was somebody's, well, it was a good idea at the time, or seemed like the right thing to do at the time, but uh, just one of those things that happened, and hopefully it was all okay for those girls. Probably not their favoriteest hour, if you will, at school. Alright, this is a new map, or a new field. Field number 38. So we got it climbing the hill here. Probably going to be an episode and a half on this particular field, if you will. Oh yes, we're leveled over the whole way. Oh, running into that tree. You know, I remember this on the farm. We farmed a lot of land that was surrounded by trees of various types. A lot of it seems to be oaks, firs, and they were just magnets for machinery. And I know sometimes we, in the off season, would come out to the field with a chainsaw and go around the edges and any limbs that were close just to take them out and sometimes take whole trees out. And so I wonder if that might be why the map author put that down there so close to the field. It's like, hey, I'll put an obstacle here and force the player to deal with it. Although, once again, this particular field, like the others, was 100% grass, 100% grazed grass. So in order to put wheat in it and turn it arable, of course, we had to come in with the chisel plow. So maybe he never intended it would turn arable, but he probably did. But that's kind of cool. And I know I've already pointed out on the map the number of places where the map author left some trees kind of hanging at an angle, if you will, where they're bent over a little bit. At some point, there's a spot on the map where it's kind of a shortcut to the main road from the farm. We'll maybe go through there at some point. You'll see it. I mean, there's a tree just kind of hanging over the road. Oh, look at this. You would never do this in real life. Go by a tree like this, but it's going to be open. Zoop! There goes our unloading auger through it. And in real life, we would have bent it around the tree, and the boss would have been very unhappy with us. Well, look at this. We're getting it full. This is miserable steep in here. Yeah, even in four-wheel drive, you can't hardly climb it. Oh my goodness. I maybe shouldn't have done that. So I maybe shouldn't have tried to till that. We are close to being full, and I'm going to have to go down and get that rig. Shoot, I could come up even on the road, and maybe that's what I'll do. I'll park it right there, set the brake. And I'll come around on the road. There you go, car. I know I saw a video one time of Atomic 67 doing it. I haven't seen it very often in farming sim videos where, and you see all kinds, of course, but I don't know that I've seen it very often where the YouTuber's chosen to go around the edge of the field and kind of trim the trees to make it a little bit easier for the machinery to come through. But I mean, shoot, that's reality. That's something a farmer, you know, would have to do to take care of his fields, do a little maintenance, take care of his equipment so it doesn't run into that and get it all bunged up and depreciate a little too quickly. And in here, you know, we have the damage mod, so it really does cause damage that costs you money to fix if, you know, you don't take care of that. Now, our unloading auger on the combine is a little bit different story. It doesn't have any, you know, what are called collisions on it, so it doesn't care if there's a tree there or not. It'll just, you know, go right through it. But there's plenty of other hard objects that if we don't take care of those, it would cause us some grief. Alright, I'm going to set the brake. And I'm going to get the combine going again. We'll put in our unloading auger. Get ready to come up here and continue on around. See, there's another tree right up there that is just begging to be taken down. The trouble is, I don't have a lick of logging equipment. I could buy a chainsaw maybe, and if I was really careful, like if I climbed this fence right here, maybe I could fall it in such a way that it doesn't land on the road and doesn't land on the field, and then I could just let it sit there for a while until I had, well, then I could buy a stick of dynamite and take out the stump. maybe there is something I can do. I'll have to give that some thought. I know I'm working on a dynamite mod, and I do have it loaded in this particular game. I'm a little reluctant to use it until I'm kind of done testing it to make sure it does what I want it to do. But I suppose that's why we have save games and restart the game and all that kind of thing. I guess if I blow up the wrong thing, we can always start over. And it's kind of bumpy in here. But hey, that's sometimes realistic. You don't always get a smooth field to travel in. Hopefully it's able to negotiate the turn okay. And this one here, I tried to make it a little bit tighter to the fence. Come on, Combine, you can make it around. There you go. Attaboy. And anybody watching this from the UK or Europe, maybe they're shaking my heads at getting too close to the field border. I know I've seen some real-life farming videos from the UK, and I think I've seen a buffer zone between the arable portion of the field and the edge. I mean, it certainly gives you an area to drive on, but I don't know if they do it around the entire edge of their field, or if it's, just a partial roadway along one side. In the fields that I worked on in Lone Oak, every field had a buffer zone, but it wasn't grass. It was a dirt strip, probably, how wide was it? 10 to 12 feet wide would be my guess. Just bare dirt. And the purpose for it, it was called a fire break. And we meant it. I know in another video, here, let me round this corner off a little better. I've talked about the practice they had of open field burning, and so it was there. It served that purpose. Now it wouldn't be perfect. I mean, if you have a rip-raging fire coming from the other side of the field, rest assured it's probably going to blow right over the top of your fire break. But as you were doing the backfiring and that kind of thing during a field burn, it would be right up against this dirt strip. And that's what it was there for, to keep the fire from going outside the field and getting into areas it shouldn't. Let me tell you, working the fire break was a dirty, dusty job. It was typically done with a rototiller, because the rest of the field was planted in something, so, and rocky. It tended to be very rocky a lot of times along the edge. So maybe that's similar, but it just, generally didn't have anything growing particularly in it. Just was a dirt strip with a bunch of lousy weeds. I think I like this field. It's got character. It gives our little hillside combine a decent workout. And we're already full again, it appears, or close to it. So I'm gonna go, I think I'll just head down the hill, and then I'm gonna have to set up a course to, probably will take it to storage. I know I'm still underwater and my negative cash is piling up again, but that's alright. If I recall correctly, the grain prices were bad at the moment, so I've at least done enough to know that I'm pretty certain I can get out of the hole. I just need to sell some inventory. That's all. So I'll maybe put a little bit more into inventory. Alright, he's stopping. He's on a hill, so he's going to be dropping from way up high, so it's going to look kind of funny. But that's alright. We'll just pretend. We'll look at it at this angle. See, look at that. It's going clear to the trailer. Nothing to see here. We made it work. Get turned around. one of the tricks with course play that I've learned, especially with this earlier version, is, now that I'm remembering, where you start and end a course can make a big difference. You know, so when you look at the field and you survey where this may be driving from, so that all points of the field can access it, that's pretty helpful. So I almost think in order to do this right, I need to start about here, if that works. Yeah, I can pretty well, oh, except he's going forward. That's probably close enough. I'll just set it up here. And we're going to head to storage. So hopefully he'll find this. Okay, and this will be enough that we can start doing our turns here. Head up the road. Take her to storage. Don't even try to drive on the left side of the road down through here. It's kind of a treacherous drive with deep ditches on both sides. So far I've been able to escape landing in the ditch. I'd kind of like to continue avoiding it. Always try to be careful, stay in the middle. There isn't generally going to be two-way traffic happening here anyways, since it's only... Well, now wait a minute. Maybe there is a car that comes down here. You know, I can't really remember. I hope not. I don't remember there being a car, but maybe there is. When I was on the farm and we offloaded combines, in those days we didn't use a tractor-trailer setup like this. Now I think they use an auger wagon, a type of overloader, if you will, to offload the combines. Then they take that auger wagon up to a truck to offload it into. Back then, the combines themselves would drive to the truck on the edge of the field. They would unload. Occasionally, if someone was driving or if it was available, they would take the truck literally out to the combine. Only very rarely was there unloading on the go while harvesting. It just wasn't something we did very often. Now I think they do it a whole lot more often. Back then, not so much. Alright, we'll come on around, and so far I've been fortunate not to... That is pretty narrow in here. I built those buildings, I'm not sure I made it quite so narrow to leave a little bit more room for equipment to pass, and that reminds me of a blooper I did one time on the farm, and I had many bloopers. But my uncles had told me I worked a lot in the grass seed cleaner, and it was in this large warehouse, and maybe someday I can show some pictures kind of what all that looked like in one of these videos. But it was in this warehouse, and there was a big set of double doors, double sliding doors, kind of where I did the bulk of my work, which was bagging up clean seed and palletizing it and that kind of thing. But every now and again, you know, I didn't take that outside. I would put that in the warehouse. I would stack it up, the clean seed. But every now and again, I'd have to go outside with there was a big old box that had bulk material in it. And when it was full and needed to be changed, you know, I'd haul it out there with the forklift and go put it over a trailer where we kept it. And there was this little pin that I would pull and dump it into the trailer. Well, my uncles warned me. They said anytime you need to go outside, just open both sliding doors as wide as you can get them, all the way open, so you have plenty of space. Well, I did that most of the time, but one time when I didn't do it is when it it cost me. I opened it part of the way, and I think that particular, it might have been a night shift I was working. And that particular night, it was cold, and so I wanted to keep the doors closed as much as I could. So I opened it only as wide as I thought I needed. And, sure enough, it would have been wide enough, but I was only looking at the left edge when I was headed through the door. And of course, I gave myself plenty of room. Well, I didn't have enough room on the right side because I didn't open the doggone doors all the way, like my uncle suggested. So these weren't roll-up doors, so when I hit it, I mean, it hit it hard, and these were doors that were stuck in grooves in the pavement of the concrete pad out there, so it really munched them to the side. And in typical fashion, here, let me save this. This is 38 combi to storage. In typical fashion by my uncles, they only partially fixed the doors, and what I say partial is they got them working again, but they didn't literally fix the brake. So after that, every time I worked and every time I had to handle those doors, I once again saw where I had made a boo-boo. And maybe they did that deliberately just so I would see it and remember and never do that again. Oh, sometimes the lessons you learn. And one of them is learning to listen and follow what you're asked to do, because usually there's a reason. And you know what? I see time moving on once again. I think I'll stop the episode here. Looks like my combine is already stopped up there. And we'll catch you all in the next one. Thank you for listening, and we'll talk to you again soon. Bye-bye now.